What's going on, guys? Welcome back to WWE Network and Show, where I, Graham, G.S. and Matthews, break down all the original content I watch on the WWE Network and on Peacock. And today we're talking the November 21st, 2022 edition of Raw Talk, the go-home show, so to speak, before Survivor Series this coming weekend, which I will be in attendance for. Very much looking forward to that. But to open up this episode, we had Jackie Redmond, Matt Camp, in the studio running down the biggest headlines from Monday's very boring edition of Raw on the whole. Not without its good stuff, and it had its glimmers of greatness throughout the 3 hours, but overall, Raw has been very fucking abysmal for a couple of weeks now. Before Crown Jewel, coming out of Crown Jewel, going into Survivor Series, and the pay-per-views have been great. Extreme Rules, Crown Jewel, both very good shows. I expect Survivor Series to be at least a solid show, if not a great show on Saturday. But SmackDown's been very enjoyable lately. For whatever reason, Raw has lost a lot of life. The crowds are beyond fucking dead, and it's not a one or 2 week thing. They've been very dead for several weeks now, and it's just not good. But anyway, so to not to open up this episode, they already ran down the biggest headlines. From after that, though, they recapped the OC Judgment Day brawl backstage before recapping the other brawl between Theory and Bobby Lashley on the show itself. So a lot of brawls on Raw this week. We had Byron Saxton catch up with Austin Theory backstage. Theory says that Bobby Lashley, remember, didn't beat Brock Lesnar at Crown Jewel earlier this month. He's not really one to say, oh, you're a loser, blah, 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 blah. He didn't get the job done either. Theory didn't when he didn't cash in Money in the Bank successfully a couple of weeks ago, but neither did Lashley when he faced Brock at Crown Jewel earlier this month. And he says he can beat Bobby Lashley, he can beat Seth Rollins, he will beat them both, and become a 2-time United States champion come Saturday, and they're stuck in the past, and he's the now. Back in the studio, Matt Camp hypes up the triple threat for Saturday, the newly announced triple threat for the pay-per-view. Seth frickin' Rollins defending the United States Championship against Bobby Lashley, and Austin Theory should be a great match. I'm glad they didn't shoehorn Mustafa Ali in there. He's been very much involved in the feud with all three guys in recent weeks, but he's had his ass handed to him by Bobby, by Rollins, by Theory, by all three guys. He's really done nothing to deserve a title shot, so even though he's been involved in the feud lately, and it looked like they were headed towards Rollins and Ali at one point, I'm glad they're not putting him in this match because he's been booked like the ultimate fucking loser in recent weeks. That really would not make any sense. They also recap the Riddle and Elias tag team win over Alpha Academy. Backstage, Byron Saxton catches up with Elias. Elias says that he was on the fence previously with Riddle, as he's told Byron on the show before and Kathy Kelly, but he says it was electric out there during Raw and teaming with Theory. That being a band right now is not official with Riddle, but it's not out of the question, he says. He's feeling inspired, and then he goes off to write a song. From there, they recap the Rhea Ripley-Asuka main event, with Ripley's team winning the War Games advantage with a win over Asuka. Back in the studio, they hype up the Women's War Games matchup. The fifth member of Team Bianca was not revealed on Raw as I thought they would be. It sounds like, from what Bianca said, they're saving it for SmackDown. I think it would be weird if they advertised it for SmackDown and then instead waited for Survivor Series. That'd be pretty fucking cheap. I would hope they don't do that. But, SmackDown got Kevin Owens last week. I'm not complaining. I was at SmackDown last week, but Owens came back. I'll be at SmackDown this week. Candice LeRae is the most logical candidate. I feel like that would be very underwhelming if they're making people wait. But it sounds like she might be dealing with a legit injury. So, Becky is my number. I mean, Becky might still be hurt too, from what I understand, but we just don't know. I feel like if it was Sasha, then they would wait for the pay-per-view if they're in Boston, but maybe if they thought that they waited until Saturday, it would become too obvious. So, I don't know. I guess we'll find out on Friday who the final person on that team will be. Back in the studio here, they talk about the strategy for the Women's War Games match and blah, blah, blah. They also recap the Brawling Brutes win over Judgment Day in 6-person tag team action on Raw this week, before hyping up AJ Styles and Finn Balor, their match for the pay-per-view, which I'm very much looking forward to. They recap Drew McIntyre's win over Baron Corbin. McIntyre tells Byron backstage that being on Raw reminded him of the old days, being on Raw, opening up the show and being in Seg 1, he says, which Matt Camp pretends he doesn't know what that is later on, which is funny. He says, he kind of recaps his night and says, we opened the show and then I beat Baron Corbin and blah, blah, blah. Someone needs to take down the Bloodline come Survivor Series. We are those people, and we will end that reign of terror come Saturday, he says. To close out Raw Talk here, back in the studio, Jackie and Matt hype up the Men's War Games match, which I'm very excited for. They hype up the Advantage match for SmackDown as well, which is going to be the team of McIntyre and Sheamus versus the Usos. The winner of that match gets the advantage for their team come War Games. And they also promote the OC. I think maybe just Gallows and Anderson, maybe AJ too, but I'm pretty sure at least, Gallows and Anderson, and Michin for the bump. So maybe AJ is there, I don't know, but Michin is the new name for Mia Yim. They made that kind of clear during Raw. I know they announced that, or they mentioned last week during the show. They said, "Oh, that's going to be your new nickname or whatever," but they specifically said nickname. And it was weird because on WWE.com right now, which is usually pretty accurate for the most part, it's referring to her and labeling her as just Michin. It's not in quotation marks. It's Michin. It's not Mia Yim. And then Corey was also calling her Mia Yim during Raw. So it sounds like they're just simply in the transition phase of just not dropping Mia Yim in one night. They want to call her Michin and Mia Yim, and then they'll just call her Michin going forward. It's not like, in the past they would just drop the name and call them something new. WWE is notorious for that. So I at least appreciate they're doing the slow transition out of Mia Yim, but to even change the name in the first place, obviously there's a reason for all of this stuff, at least under Triple H. With Vince, it's just because, whatever he's feeling that day might be the reason. With Triple H, I would assume there's a reason, whether it be a legal thing or a trademark thing or whatever. Other people have come back to the company, like Johnny Gargano, using their real names. And he's been back for months now. Then again, they changed his fucking music after 3 months, so nothing's out of the question. I don't want to jinx it, but Michin is, I think, Korean for crazy. Cool. I mean, it's not an awful name by any means, but just why deviate from Mia Yim? I guess it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. A lot of the main roster audience has no idea who she is anyway. They didn't watch NXT when she was there, so I guess it doesn't really matter. But I don't know. I just find that sort of stuff silly. When it's not necessary, why do it? But anyway, for Raw Talk, decent show here. Not really any interesting analysis from Camp and Jackie. The interviews were fine. They were short. They were sweet. The sole goal of this show was the hype up Survivor Series for Saturday, and it did that just fine. So I'm looking forward to the show. Like I said, they weren't really capturing my excitement for the pay-per-view up until probably that last segment on SmackDown on Friday, when Kevin Owens came out and they made the men's War Games match official. The women's War Games match should be great from an in-ring standpoint. The build, unfortunately, has left a lot to be desired. Damage Control just has no heat. Rhea and Mia are kind of doing their own thing, and they were kind of shoehorned into the match because they don't really have many other women to put in that spot. That would make sense. So that's pretty much that, really. And, I'm looking forward to the triple threat. Ronda and Shotzi should be fine. I don't really care. And then Balor and AJ looks great, too. So the build for the show hasn't been the strongest, but on paper, the card looks very promising. So I'm looking forward to the pay-per-view on Saturday. Thank you guys for checking in my Raw Talk review. I almost said Raw review. My Raw Talk review for November 21st, 2022. I appreciate it. Be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more daily content. And also hit the bell button as well to be notified every time a new video goes up. More content coming here to the channel in the days to come. We got Bianca Belair here on the channel, the Raw Women's Champion, talking all about Survivor Series and much, much more. That should be dropping here on the channel on Friday, so keep an eye out for that. And then, maybe some Survivor Series live reactions on Saturday, maybe some SmackDown live reactions on Friday, because I'll be at SmackDown as well in Providence for the second straight week. Hashtag AskGSM tomorrow, WrestleRant radio excerpts on Thanksgiving, and so much more. So have a great holiday week if you celebrate. If not, have a great week in general. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.